Crimepedia Halloween special. Well done, Morgan. That was great. I love our spooky intro. You're a genius.
I have to thank our good friend, Captain, for making that happen.
Oh, bless him. Thank you very much, Captain. That sounded amazing. That was so cool. I love it. I wish we could keep that all year round.
You'll float too.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. So welcome to this week's episode of Crimepedia, and this week is a live episode. You might be listening along live right now, or you might be listening on normal release date, which is obviously Tuesday. So welcome either way. It is Halloween as we are recording this episode, so we have decided this week to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to give you a case today. It's my week, so I'm going to give you a case today. And at the end of it, you can tell me whether you think it was a real case or whether you think it was a trick case. And we'll see what you think.
I'm excited.
I'm excited for this one. I'm quite excited for this one, actually.
How many people are going to go through this episode and they're like, oh, this is a really good case. And then at the end, you're like, psych, just kidding.
Yeah, it was fake. And I made it up and I spent all week writing it up. Well, you'll see. I'll see what you think by the end of it. We'll just see. So, yes. So are you ready for me to introduce the case to you?
I am ready.
Your home is your safe place, a place you can be yourself and live with no fear. Now, on Halloween night in 1908, in the southwest of England, a young boy was tucked into his bed in a little terraced house in Fisherton in Salisbury by his mother. That night would be the last night she would ever do that. That night would be the brutal murder of that 12-year-old boy, a murder that has puzzled police and historians for over 100 years. This is Crimepedia, and this is Who Killed Teddy Haskell. Okay, so in 1908... 12-year-old Edwin Haskell, known as Teddy, and his 34-year-old mum, Flora, lived at number 40 Meadow Road, which was a small terraced house on Fisherton, which is a suburb of Salisbury in Wiltshire. Now, Salisbury is a medieval cathedral city, okay, in southern England. It's in a county of Wiltshire. It's 9 miles south of Stonehenge. So it's one of those kind of like known for its spookiness, and it's not very far from Salisbury Plain, which is where it stands. So Salisbury is known for ghost walks and tours of the city. They do these ghost walks that you can go in and you get someone that guides you around and shows you where all the scary bits are. It's got like the tallest cathedral spire. It's got the world's like oldest working clock ever. And the cathedral has got one of the original copies of the Magna Carta. So if you don't know what Magna Carta is, it's a document from the 1200s that basically set out rights of English people. So like it's a massive document that they don't really want to lose, and it's there in Salisbury. And you're not allowed to Google any of this. Get your hands off your computer, you little cheat. Get away. No, hands in the air. Now, Teddy was born in 1896, so it's the end of the Victorian era, and this was kind of like just after Queen Victoria died and the coronation of King Edward VII, which was in 1901, and he was 4 years old when King Edward was crowned. Yeah. So when Teddy was 6, he contracted tuberculosis in one of his legs. Now, this meant that the leg had to be amputated. Now, I thought tuberculosis only affected your chest. Okay, I thought tuberculosis was a chest thing, but apparently it can go anywhere in your body. It's a contagious airborne disease which most commonly attacks the lungs, but can affect any bit of you, from your brain to your bloodstream, like loads of stuff. But getting tuberculosis in the 1900s was pretty much a death sentence. Yeah. So in the United Kingdom, there was an epidemic, and it was around 1750. But in the 19th century, tuberculosis actually killed about a quarter of the adult population of Europe. It was that bad. So it was tuberculosis of the lungs, which was one of the two most common causes of death back then. The other was pneumonia. and
Okay.
it would kill you really, really slowly. It is a horrible disease. It would basically just like, in some people, they would be like bringing up, this is Halloween, so I can be gross. They would bring up like phlegm and gross stuff for years, like
Yeah.
years and years. It's gross. And they all, basically the disease would like eat away at them to get rid of all their lungs and then just waste their body away. Now, if you got tuberculosis in a limb, it would feel like really, really bad arthritis.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was quite rare to have it in your bones, but obviously with modern medicine, it can be treated. If you detect it early enough, you can actually treat tuberculosis now. Now, I went through the records. This was so fascinating, right? I went back through the records and about how tuberculosis was found back in the 1900s, and also about how surgeries were done. Now, I was looking at this for hours. So in the days before antisepsis medication and before antibiotics, the mortality for amputation was really high. Okay. Now they
Yeah.
either use in the 1900s, when we're talking about teddies, they use chloroform or ether. And they use this as their anesthetic. But around 70% of patients that were operated on using chloroform died. So the odds are not stacked in your favor if you're going to go and have an operation. So before they had anesthetic, right, the patient would be prepped for surgery. Alcohol was the method used to calm their nerves before they had all this. I know. So the patient would be given rum or whiskey and then wheeled into the theatre. But in those days, because of the lack of, basically the anesthetic that they had, this whiskey or rum, was not long lasting enough, they had to do the operation really quickly. So in some cases, there were some doctors that could whip off a leg in 30 seconds. I know, it's crazy.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
So I had a look back in these archives, right, medical journal archives, about how it was a London hospital. And it was about how you would actually amputate a leg back then, and the instruments that they would use. If you are squeamish, not a good thing to search up. So basically, they would put a tourniquet around just above where they were going to cut the arm or the leg off. They would tighten it as hard as they could to restrict the blood flow and reduce the hemorrhaging. This would then also reduce sensation to the leg. So they would tighten it so tight that your leg would start to go numb. Okay. I don't think numb enough, but it would go numb. So they would then, it would mean obviously the oxygen is restricted to the limb. So they'd have to do it quite quickly. So they would then do this initial incision, which was made with this sharp amputation knife. And it was like a long, I would say like a paring knife. It was a long, thin knife. Later on in the 1900s, they got like a rounded knife, but it was, and they would basically just like separate the flesh. So pull it all around and take the flesh open. And then they would just get this saw. And literally it looks like a saw that my husband's got in the garage. And they would just hack away at the bone and just take the leg right off.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was crazy. It's got big sharp teeth so that it could just dig in and do, so it's just as quick as possible. There were loads of other instruments that I found, like a lot of other instruments that I found, but there were these really weird, like round ones that look like apple corers. I couldn't find out what they were actually for. It was a bit gross. Now, fortunately, Teddy coped really, really well with the loss of his leg. So for back in those days, and being a young kid, he actually did really, really well. He didn't have any trouble getting around on crutches. He was quite good. He played football with his friends. He was really cheerful. He was well liked by everyone that knew him. And Flora Haskell, his mum, was a widow. Her husband had died from tuberculosis 3 years previously, and she worked as a laundress. So she didn't actually earn a lot of money, but it was enough for her and Teddy. Her and Teddy were really, really, really close. And a lot of people commented about how close they were. She was saving as much cash as she could, even though she wasn't earning very much, to buy Teddy a prosthetic leg. So I looked up prosthetic legs in the 1900s. They were actually made of cork at that time, which I was like, wow, made of cork. And so they cost quite a lot of money back then. And I looked now to see how much a prosthetic leg would cost now. And you're looking in the region between like $5,000 and sometimes up to $50,000 for a really cool prosthetic leg. So on Halloween night, 1908, around 10:30 p.m., a lad called Percy Noble, who was Flora's nephew went round to her house to return a shilling that he had borrowed from her earlier. So he knocked at her back door and there was a light on in the kitchen. He said that he heard a chair being moved and then a thumping noise, but didn't hear a door being open or closed. He then heard Flora scream. She threw the door open and screamed at him, "Go and see if you can see that man. He's killed my poor Teddy. Go for the doctor." So Percy, in a panic, looked up and down the road but couldn't see anybody. So he went and got a doctor as well as a police sergeant. So the neighbours heard the commotion and came to see what was going on, because back in those days it was so like people just really didn't give a toss. They literally, if someone was dead somewhere, they'd all crowd round, have a good old nose. I even saw a picture of this lady in, like, it was in the 1900s, and it was a place where a body had been, and she was quite proudly stood there pointing at the ground where the body had been found. Yeah, right there. So the neighbours came round. And when the police arrived and went upstairs, they found that Teddy was lying in his bed and someone had slit his throat. Now, the knife, which was covered in blood, was lying at the bottom of the stairs near the kitchen. The upstairs drawer where the money for Teddy's cork leg was stashed had been broken open and the cash was gone. So Flora explained to the police that after putting Teddy to bed, she went to sit in the kitchen. Okay. So I want to explain to you a little bit about this house. It's a small terraced house, and this will sort of help you understand the logistics of Flora's explanation. So from the front door, you go in and the door sort of goes directly onto the street. So you'd go directly from the hallway onto the street. And then you go in and you can go straight upstairs. So you go in the door, you can either go straight upstairs or you can go into a room, which then goes into another room, which then goes into the kitchen. And where the kitchen is, there's a back door, a tiny little courtyard. And from the courtyard is like an alleyway behind, like a small alleyway that runs at the back of the houses. So Flora explained that she was putting Teddy to bed. She went to sit in the kitchen, which is at the back of the house, which leads into the courtyard. She heard a noise a short while later, thinking that it was a visitor to the front door. So she went out towards the front door, and then a strange man ran down the stairs, pushed her to one side, threw a knife at her, and then ran out of the front door. She said that he turned right out of the front door and then 2 doors down turned onto another residential street, which was called York Road. So Flora could only give a partial description of this guy. Okay. She said that he wasn't seen by anybody else. Nobody else, nobody else outside saw him. It was literally just her that saw him. And the procedure at the time, the police constable at the time, the chief constable, it was Chief Constable Richardson of Salisbury Police, immediately contacted police detectives at Scotland Yard in London, because this was something that didn't happen very much back then, and especially it's the brutal murder of a child. So a telegram alert was sent to all the stations to look out for this mysterious man. There was a massive search over the next couple of days, but the police could find no traces and nobody who could say anything about this man. The problem was, before the police had been able to examine the crime scene or Teddy's body, doctors had been into the house and had washed and moved his body and disarranged all the bedclothes. So any evidence that you might have had, such as fingerprints or anything like that, would be lost. But we're talking about 1908. So fingerprints, fingerprinting back then wasn't a huge thing, was it? So
real quick question to go back. What door did Percy Noble go to? What
the back door? The back door. He came to the back door of the house.
And what's mom's name again?
Flora.
And Flora asked Percy if she saw that man?
Yeah.
But he was at the back door and he ran out the front door. Okay.
Yeah. So the police were able to determine that the murder weapon was a kitchen knife that belonged to Flora, which had recently been sharpened. Okay. So Chief Inspector Walter Dew of London Scotland Yard was sent to Salisbury, from London. London is about 90 miles away from Salisbury, and he was sent to investigate the murder. Now, he had been involved in the hunt for London's famous serial killer, Jack the Ripper, but apparently he exaggerated how much he was involved in that. So he claims that he was involved in that, but how much he was involved with it is questionable. So the local chief constable, the guy I talked about earlier, Ernest Richardson, told his family that as soon as Chief Inspector Dew came to Salisbury, he believed that Flora was guilty from the very beginning, okay? Whereas Chief Constable Richardson wasn't so sure, and he preferred to get the facts before he made his mind up. So Detective Dew thinks that she's guilty, whereas Chief Constable Richardson thinks she's not. Now, she was arrested and she was charged with the murder 5 days after Teddy had died, which was the 4th of November. Teddy's funeral took place the next day, okay? On the day of Teddy's funeral, there were crowds, literally, oh, it's so sad. There was crowds lined everywhere as the hearse drove down. It was a mile from his house to the graveyard, which was on Devizes Road in Salisbury. His coffin was followed to the graveside by 12 of his classmates from Fisherton School, and he was buried alongside his dad.
Oh,
that's really sad. So this brings us to the trial. Now, the prosecution said that the most telling evidence of the trial was the blood-stained clothing that Flora wore on the night of the murder.
okay.
Now, the medical experts testified that the stains showed no splash, okay? Because it would have been expected that as the assailant came to the bottom of the stairs and threw the knife at her, she would have been splashed with blood. And they think that there wasn't enough splash on the clothing. They also said that blood was found in Flora's kitchen was consistent with a knife being laid down on the side, not dropped or thrown. Okay. Now, the prosecution also said that Flora's story didn't add up because she said that this strange man comes running down the stairs, shoves her aside, throws a knife at her and runs out the door. And she doesn't go upstairs after seeing him, but knew that Teddy had been murdered, which is what she screamed at Percy. He's murdered my Teddy.
Oh, okay.
So that's not, obviously that's doesn't really make sense. The first thing you would do, I think, would be to run upstairs to try and find your kid. Well, that would be logically thinking. Now, the prosecution claimed that she had killed Teddy in an act of mercy because of his amputated leg. They're saying that the murder wasn't premeditated, but they think it was the result of a moment of madness. An extraordinary, abnormal condition. She just had a moment of madness and decided to go and kill her son. And she said her response to this, and this is quite a famous response: "If I did it, I don't remember."
Oh, okay.
So at the court hearing, she was described as being pale and listless. And this will be quite important later on, I think. Now, a priest visited her several times. And he hinted that she had confessed the crime to him as well. They're all on Flora's case. Like, they all just think she did it straight off. I'm like trying to root for Flora. But the Reverend also did say that she wasn't at her right mind at the time of the murder, although her family and friends say she was absolutely fine and there was no signs of anything. The defense argued that Teddy had been killed by a burglar who had taken the money from the savings pot. Now, numerous witnesses testified that Teddy managed his disability really, really well, and therefore Flora would have no need to have killed him.
Yeah.
They had a lot of friends and family members that came in to testify about her character and give her, a character witness. They said that she was a lovely lady. The two were really close. And it's just very sad, very, very sad. Now, in the end of the trial, the jurors were left deadlocked because they couldn't decide whether or not she actually did it. And Flora was then tried a second time. Okay, so this was in April 1909, and the jury then returned an acquittal on the grounds of insufficient evidence to say that she did it or not. She also appeared at the inquest into Teddy's death in late November 1908, and the inquest verdict was Flora had killed Teddy during a moment of temporary insanity.
Wait, this is fake.
Okay.
This is fake.
Why?
Because the inquest, they never find anything besides being open.
That's right. It's never anything other than open. You got me. No. So after she was released, Flora moved to Stockwell in London, and she died of tuberculosis, aged 46, in 1920. Okay. Now, this cause of death perhaps explains why in court she was pale and listless, because she had been suffering from this for quite some time. So she was already suffering from tuberculosis at the time of Teddy's death. There were no other suspects in her son's murder ever found. Okay. So did she do it or did she not, first of all? From what you've heard, did she do it?
Yes, she did.
Why do you say that?
Because she's full of shit.
You can't just say that. Why?
It makes no sense. That first off, that she knows that Teddy's been murdered without going upstairs to seeing him. She's going to see Percy at the back door, asking if Percy saw the man running out the front door, which there's no God green earth way that he did.
Bearing in mind her son's just been shot, her son's just been killed, and she's in shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Her story doesn't add up to me.
Okay, so first of all, I think the blood spatter can't be relied on because they weren't analysis people back then. Okay.
Nope.
And I don't think you can trust the blood patter conclusion that they came to with that one. And I think that if you look at the way the house is, the front door open.
Well, yeah, front door. Go back to the knife. The knife was in the kitchen, and they said
the knife was on the kitchen, apparently on the side, and looked like it had been laid down instead of dropped or thrown down. But she wouldn't have dropped or thrown it.
If someone killed him and threw the knife at her, how is he going to throw the knife through?
No. He threw the knife at her at the bottom of the stairs. She ran to the back door when Percy came to the back door. So she would have put the knife down on the side because he threw it at her. So she caught the knife.
She caught the knife.
Well, no, I don't think he threw it. I don't think he threw it at her as a spear. I think he shoved her and put the knife against her.
Get out of town.
Oh, come on. You can't just straight away think she's guilty. Listen to my reasoning. Okay. So I think that there is good reason why the blood would be on the side in the kitchen, because she would have put the knife down. She wouldn't have thrown the knife on the side. So that to me, when you look at it, I get that the knife wasn't thrown in the kitchen. I get the knife was put down on the side, because if she's had it shoved into her stomach and she's just like, oh my God, it's a knife and it's blood. And then Percy's come in and she's run and put the knife down on the side, screaming at Percy. I don't suppose she would have thrown it. So that to me makes sense. That's why it's laid down on the side and not thrown on the side. Okay. The strange thing, I think, is that the front door opens directly onto the street. Okay. There's also the back door. The house has one staircase which goes up, which is directly opposite the front door. So this guy would have ran down the stairs and then straight out of the front door. She would have had to come from the kitchen where she was sat through a little sitting room into where the front door is. So I get that she would have heard something going on, thought that was a bit strange, come to the front. He's run down the stairs and she's like, what the hell? And he's pushed her out the way so he can get to the front door and pushed the knife against her. So she's then got the knife in her hand and then has gone, oh my God. But if he had existed, he must have got in the front door in the first place, because she was already in the kitchen. So he must have come in the front door, up the stairs, killed Teddy, taken the money and back down the stairs and out again. So he would have had to have known that money was there.
So Teddy's dad had been dead for 2 years, right?
Sorry?
Teddy's dad had been dead for 2 years or something like that?
3 years, yeah.
So Miss Flora was a little lonely, okay?
Yeah.
And so she was begging the butcher because of the butcher knife.
This is what I was thinking. Not the butcher, but this is what I was thinking.
So she's shagging up with someone.
Uh-huh.
He knows that she's saving up money.
Exactly. And knows where it is.
But my only problem is she would know who the hell she was banging, unless she was just banging some rando.
Well, unless the person that she was banging was somebody she shouldn't have been.
Like Percy. Oh, snap!
Oh, Percy, not Percy. But this is what I thought. So you've thought the same as me. What if she was having a relationship, or she was offering services to somebody that she shouldn't? Now, see, if she was a lady of the night back in the 1900s, that would have been severely frowned upon. Now, she was a widow, not an unmarried mother. So her relationship, her being single mum, wouldn't have been frowned upon. However, had she have been a lady of the night, it would have been very frowned upon. But she's not making a lot of money as a laundress. So could it be that she was having an affair with, or having an arrangement with somebody, but she doesn't want to say that, because one, it would be damning on her image, and two, that person could be somebody who she can identify.
Counterpoint, wouldn't be being accused of killing your son also damaging to her?
Yeah, definitely. But, they've got no proof that she did actually do it. There's nothing, there's nothing to say that she actually did kill him. That's what I thought straight away. I wonder if she was having some sort of extramarital affair, or somebody was married and she was, maybe.
There's no way that someone's just going to happen to just sneak into your house, get upstairs, kill your son, and get out without you knowing before he's ran down the steps.
Exactly. So for me, I think it would be somebody she would have known. And why would they be in her house at night when Teddy's in bed? Other than, and the fact that she was upstairs already with them, and she's either come downstairs and then this guy has gone, or Teddy's seen him and shouldn't have seen him, and that's why he's killed him. So that, to me, that was my most, when I was reading through what I was reading through, that was my most convincing theory. Now, the weird thing is, over 110 years have passed now since this murder, okay? And on October 31st, 2008, exactly 100 years after Teddy died, some local historians actually got a petition up for Teddy's death to no longer be a murder. They got it changed, that Flora was no longer listed as his murderer. And the house that he was killed in still is up today. 40 Meadow Road in Salisbury is still lived in. It was put up for sale in 2018 with a price tag of $220, which is $302,000 US. But the history of Teddy was never named in the estate agent's documents.
Damn.
See, it sounded like she killed him up until the point that you mention the fact that she might have known who was in there. I have got a gut feeling she is innocent.
You
can't tell me that you'd be able to prosecute her 100%.
No,
you can't say 100% she did do it.
No, in 1908, and hell no. No way.
No. I don't think that she did. I think she was entertaining somebody.
I'm still very suspicious of this coroner's inquest.
Yeah, the fact that it didn't actually go the way coroner's inquests always do go.
What if it was the coroner that she was?
What if it was the local policeman who thought that she didn't do it? Oh, no, he would have said she did do it if that was the case.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to read. We've obviously got here our listeners, our Patreon listeners that are actually listening live to this at the time. Helen says she definitely did it. We've got Lozan definitely did it. Who else? We've got Samantha. I agree. If this is made up, you're doing an amazing job telling such a tale. I can't tell what I think yet, but this is actually amazing. That's funny. Oh, bless you. Helen says she did it. So what do you think?
This is my final answer.
Your final answer, did she or didn't she kill her son? The son that she was really close to, that she had seen through tuberculosis and looked after him, saving up to make the prosthetic leg, and then she'd just walk upstairs, slit his throat, and where did the money go? So if she stole the money, where is it? It's her money anyway.
Yeah. Well, how do we know there was actually money?
Because people knew that she was actually saving for it, and the pot was broken that the money was in. Well, it wasn't in her purse, was it?
I don't know.
I don't know whether this is just a mother in me that's sort of thinking, no, she didn't do it, or I'm just being soft. But I think, gut feeling, she didn't do it. I don't think she did it. And the reason she couldn't give a description of that man was because it would have been worse for her if she had have done.
That's a good call. I don't know. I want to say she did it, but I can't.
Now I've changed your mind. You were like, yeah, she did it the whole way through. Until the Lady of the Night theory.
That I'm going to go with that. I'm going to
You
go.
think
he was doing something that she was ashamed of, and that's why she couldn't come straight out and be like, "Oh, it was this guy," because I'm a hero.
Yeah, and that's a sad thing. That's a really sad thing about it, because she would have to carry that guilt for the rest of her life, knowing who did it.
See, I don't know.
Yeah, see, Helen said surely somebody would have seen this guy. See, now possibly somebody did see him, but if it was a respected member of the community that had just walked, but he doesn't have to be running out of the house. He could have just been walking, and people might not have even put two and two together that he was the one, because obviously they would have asked, have you seen anyone acting strangely? Have you seen anyone running around? They would have all said no, because they didn't, because this guy could have just calmly walked out. It could have been a customer. It could well have been somebody. It could have been a customer she didn't know, and that's why, but she wouldn't want to admit to the fact that he was in her house and they were up to what they were up to. If this is made up, you need to write mystery books. That would be so much fun.
Am I allowed to map this?
No, you're not allowed to cheat.
I'm not cheating. I need to get an idea of the area.
You don't need to get an idea of the area. I already told you the area. There's no need for you to look. Because if you don't find it, then you'll know I've written it. If you do find it, then you'll know it's real. So you can't do any cheating. No map for you today, mister. You hate it when you can't map things.
Why? Okay, it could be fake and be a real address.
It could be, yeah. But then if you do look at it and it is a real case, it might bring it up on the internet, and then you'll know. So you can't. Okay, you tell me. Do you think it's real or do you think it's fake? Do you think I'm made it up? You think it's fake? Do you?
Yeah, I think it's fake.
Why do you think it's fake? Because of the coroner's inquest. Damn it, I messed it up there, didn't I? I should have just said they had no idea what was going on.
Okay, so here's the thing. I was thinking fake from almost the beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
But then when you dropped the 2008 shit, I was like, oh man, maybe it's real.
We've got some messages here. Sherlyn did ask me this week if you would cheat, and I said, damn right you'd cheat. I know you cheat. You'd look it up if I told you anything about it. And Samantha said Morgan might cry with no map. Yeah, he doesn't know what to do with himself if we've got no map in the episode.
Well, first off, when you were like, his name is Edward Haskell, I was like, Eddie Haskell? There's no way this is real. She got this shit from Leave It to Beaver. If you know what that is, maybe don't.
I know the name of it.
I want to say that this is made up because I want to be very impressed with your fiction writing. I'll say it's real. That's my final answer. I'll say it's real.
You think it's real? You are correct. It is a real case.
Hey.
It did actually happen, and it is one of Britain's longest, obviously unsolved murders. And there is, if you go to Salisbury, you can actually go and see the house. The house is still standing. I've got the link to the estate agent's books where you can see the house as it is today. Obviously the layout's still the same, and it's really actually quite eerie when you look at the outside photos, because you can actually see like the little graveyard no, you can see the little courtyard, sorry, and the lane that goes behind it where Percy would have walked up. You can see where the man would have run out of the house down the street. It's actually quite, yeah, the names are all real. Yeah, everything's all real. I did actually write one. I did get a film script and rewrite it, but then I thought it sounded way too fake. So I thought, no, actually, I'll pick a case from a long, long time ago. So definitely go and Google it. Definitely go and have a look, because it's a very interesting case. And he's such a cute little guy, and you can see his gravestone and everything. But yeah, it's actually, sadly, a real case.
So let's see. They're on Meadow Road.
Yeah, that's right. And he ran out of the front door. And he turned right out of the front door. And he ran down the road and turned right again into, I think it was right again.
Onto York Road.
Onto York Road, yeah. And that's where.
Dude, it was Percy.
Yeah.
How old's Percy?
I don't know. It just said he was his nephew. She didn't say his age. I couldn't find anything about his age. But I did actually go and look up the real I did actually go and look up all the procedures. Everything I told you was true. All the procedures, and how I was very interested to see how Teddy's injury and how they would have performed that kind of operation back then. And I thought that was actually horrifying for a child to have to go through that kind of surgery back then. Was horrific. And then bless him, like a couple of years later, and he gets brutally murdered in his bed. But I just don't think it was his mum. I just don't think it was her.
I think it was Percy. I'm not saying this to be funny. I think it was Percy.
But why would she stick up for Percy?
Well, because unless he was like, did she see his face? Was she able to?
She couldn't really. No, she said she couldn't really give a description of him. So I think it was if it was family, I think she probably would. I'm going with my
because if he goes right, that turns right.
Oh yeah, it would come round in a square. Yeah, back to the back door.
Back to the back door.
Yeah, and Percy was family, so he would know about the money.
And if you look at how these houses are set up with the courtyards and everything.
Yeah, they're very. There's an alleyway that runs behind them.
Well, barely an alleyway. I mean, yeah. So I guess Percy could have been living in that little block area somewhere, but it makes no sense. Why? And what time of night was this at?
10. It was 10:30. 10:30 at night.
That's late. What's Percy doing knocking on the back door at 10:30 at night?
That's what I was thinking. Like, why did he go knock on the door to give her back her money that late at night? That's weird.
1 shilling.
But see, this is what made me think that it was very strange. See, Percy coming to the back door, if she knew she had a man upstairs and he wasn't supposed to be there, he could have then, she could have then panicked. The guy upstairs could have panicked, and that's why she didn't run to Percy's door. So she's gone down to shoo the guy out the front door, and that's when he's come down covered in blood.
Yeah.
And then that's why she's panicked and said, that man's killed my Teddy, because she wasn't expecting him to come downstairs having just murdered her son. Unfortunately, I don't think it matters how much evidential stuff we've got nowadays. I don't think we're ever going to find out who killed Teddy. Which is such a shame, isn't it?
No.
He's such a sweet boy. We have Crimepedia Baby watching the episode live.
Oh,
she's so gorgeous. It's so mad we've known her from an embryo. So that is this week's case for you.
That's really good.
It was fun, wasn't it?
It is. You know what? Since this was an old one,
yeah,
I think we need to do. Well, it's not really a one that's like publicized or anything. It's not even. I mean, if you look at it, it's not even like an open case, like it was solved. But it'd be interesting to look at my great grandfather. Okay, so in 1910, It would have been like December 1910.
Mm-hmm.
He lost his second wife in August. My great-grandfather, Louis Bush, was a year old, maybe very young. And one day he was working. He worked as a barkeep at a saloon. And after he left work, he went around the corner to a friend's house. And I guess there was someone at the house that was sick. And from what we can tell in the newspapers, he became distraught, went outside, went like to the backyard out towards like the garage, and then shot himself. Right.
Oh, no way.
But I don't think he did.
Okay, why?
He did. I don't know. Just something that's weird about it. That they said, oh, he was so distraught over losing his wife that he killed himself. But this was like 3-4 months after the fact.
After she died.
Yeah, just worked a full day. He went to go visit friends who had a sick relative. And then he's going to see a sick relative and go, I'm just going to go out into your backyard and shoot myself.
That's doesn't make really sense weird.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me either. No. It doesn't make any sense. That's strange. Yeah, we definitely need to look into that one. The only problem is there's not a lot of people to interview now from hanging around from that. Sadly. No. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Do you know what? We have some murders in my family, funny enough. My mum's uncle shot his wife, so shot her auntie. I think he shot her. Yeah, I think he shot her and killed her, which was bizarre. Nobody obviously was expecting that either. But that nobody talks about that in my family. Nobody will talk about it. We can't find anything about it in the local press or anything. I've looked press archives and stuff and can't find anything. But my granddad wouldn't talk about his sister's death at all. We wouldn't even talk about it. Strange. But it would have been interesting to look into that.
Oh, let me read this.
Okay.
Grief for dead wife causes man to kill himself. Jacob Bush, 34, a saloon keeper at Grant and Livingston Avenues, ended his life by sending a bullet through his brain in the yard in the rear of the home of Adam Dorsam, who's also a relative, by the way. Well, he's
quite graphic.
One of my relatives. So he married, I think he was like married into the Dorsam family, something like that. This was at 1318 Jackson Street, which is still there, by the way. Wednesday morning. Despondency over the death of his wife last summer is believed to have prompted him to end his life. Bush called at the Dorsam home to visit one of the members of the family who was sick. He went out the back door and was weeping when he left the home.
Oh.
When he reached the doorway of the shed in the backyard, he pulled a gun, placed it to his head, and fired the fatal shot. The bullet passed through the head and out the left temple. Since the death of his wife, Bush has made his home with his mother, Miss John Loudon, at 398 East Fulton Street, which is not there anymore. He is survived by two sons, one 13 years of age and the other a baby aged 1 year, who is my great-grandfather, Louis Bush. The body was removed to Schedinger's undertaking establishment in a patrol wagon, and Schedinger's is still around.
That's crazy. Look how much detail they've gone into. And the fact that they said like a bullet went through his, that you wouldn't be able to write things like that now. It's too disturbing for people. They were brutal back in the day.
Oh yeah. Yes, they were.
They were really brutal.
It's crazy. I have a certificate, everything is crazy. So
that's mad. God. That's really interesting. You should definitely try and look at. But the trouble is, again, with something like that that's so long ago, there's nobody around that's going to be able to talk to you about it. And unless they kept records or diaries, then you're not going to be able to find out very much. It's so interesting. When I look back into the history of like anesthetic and stuff like that, and you can look through the medical journals and see the things but they like this one doctor had an idea about, if I give somebody this amount of chloroform, it might knock them out, but it might kill them, so let's just try it anyway. So they literally just like tried it out on people, and it said like lots of people died until he got it right. And then they showed how I read about how he put stuff on a gauze tested it thinking that this would keep the wound fresh, because a lot of people died because of like sepsis and stuff.
Yeah.
This would try this on this guy, see if it works. So he treated the wound with this gauze, put some sort of, I don't know, it was some sort of acid or something that he put on there, put it on, wrapped the guy's leg back up, checked it within a week, thinking that he might die because he might have sepsis, but it was all clean. So he was then, hallelujah, this works. So in future, he did that on all of his clients, and then people slowly started to die less. But there were a lot of casualties on this guy, like just testing stuff out. And I was like, man. Yeah, and it's obviously that was before they did it all on like, you know, animals and stuff. But this is like real people that he would have this mad brain idea. I wonder if this will work. Oh, I'll try it out on my next patient. If you were unlucky to be the next patient, you would be, you know, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah, well, when you were talking, you know, doing your story with Teddy and getting amputated, I started thinking about like the Civil War and like during the Civil War, they would amputate anything. It's like, oh, he got shot in the leg, amputate it.
Yeah,
but they would do like multiple amputations, like right there. There was, you know, there was
nothing
sterilization, nothing. They just did it right there in the field.
They did. And a lot of that comes up when you start researching into it. It tells you a lot about in the trenches, all the different things that they would perform. And like you say, if they got shot in the arm or something, they would just chop it straight off right there and then. Just chop it off, bandage it up. And there's obviously no pain relief. They would just literally give the guy a bit of something to bite on, and they would. It's crazy.
And Sam, because everyone goes to a concentration camps on their honeymoon. Sam went to concentration camp on a European honeymoon.
Wow.
And they were told about how much experimentation was done that recorded, or if the subjects lived or died. That is
sad, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
no,
very
it is.
sad. Yeah, it's really sad that actually the doctor would just have an idea this might work. So let's just try it on you. And if you die, you die. Oh, okay. Cheers.
Didn't they do stuff like they did like experiments on like trying to like change eye color and stuff like that?
They did some really, really weird stuff back in the day. They did some really strange things. But I wonder, out of how many of those crazy harebrained ideas at the time, modern medicine has come from that in some form or another. I would imagine quite a lot. Accidents. Yeah. Oh, Samantha's just messaged to say that actually they are a little bit messed up. Their primary destination was Oktoberfest, if that makes you feel any better.
They wanted to go to Oktoberfest in Munich, and they ended up in
a concentration camp instead. Oh wow. See, that's one thing. See, I think I'm quite tough with stuff like that. And there's certain things that I don't think I'd ever be able to go to somewhere like that.
Yeah.
I think I'd really struggle with somewhere like that. And it's the same with like cases. You might notice we don't do a lot of kids cases because they're the cases that always get you and I really, really like, it's so hard. And especially when you know that it's a real case. And with Teddy's, the reason I really wanted to do this case is I read about this quite a while ago, but I think the mum was innocent. I know myself, when you read this, you think, oh God, she did do it. You know, it's obvious she did it because who is this guy? But then when I was thinking about that, and the weird thing is, it's because I was watching Downton Abbey with my daughter, and in Downton Abbey, have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Downton Abbey, Ethel is one of the maids downstairs, and she turns to prostitution because her son had like a liaison with an army general or something, and he basically just threw her to one side. So she was left now unmarried with a baby, which was frowned upon back then. But also then she turned to prostitution to try and earn money to look after her son. And it was so frowned upon that everybody, like nobody wanted anything to do with her because that's what she did to earn her money. And that's what immediately made me think, I wonder if Teddy's mum was doing something like that, but couldn't say. And even after she got arrested, still couldn't say that she was, you know, a prostitute. And that made me really sad. And I thought, I wonder if that's what she was doing. And that's why.
It could be. Definitely could be.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me, though, because it doesn't make sense, once again, to that someone was able to get in the house and.
Exactly. Without her knowing. I know they probably didn't lock their doors back then, though, to be fair. You know, the doors probably weren't locked. So somebody might have been able to get in the front door if she was in the kitchen.
But it's not
she
like these
wouldn't have
places
heard them.
in 1908 were carpeted or anything.
True, that's
It's
true.
gonna be like
Yeah.
wood stairs, and I mean, if
Yeah.
you ever walked up
Yeah.
some wood steps, they're noisy.
No. Yeah. Which is what makes me think she knew who it was.
Yeah.
And why would you not say anything about somebody who killed your son? It would be either because they were a person of power or, I don't know. So that was my thoughts on it anyway. I'm on Flora's side.
That was good.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. So next week will be your case.
It will be.
And it won't be a made up case next week. It'll be another real case.
It'll be a real one.
I wondered if you'd be able to tell. I wondered because there's a lot of detail in it. When I was writing the fake case, I put lots of detail. And I thought, I wonder if this is too much detail. And you might go, you don't normally go into this much detail.
Yeah, there was a lot of detail about the court case, and I was like, would it really be? I mean,
I know there was a lot of information about it. There was a lot of information I could find online about it, which was really interesting. When you go and look through it, they were just hell bent on her being
guilty
by reason of insanity. She just suddenly had a moment, went up and killed him, and she was like, "Well, if I did, I don't remember." So I think she kind of went, okay, they can't prove it, so I'll just crack on as I am.
No, that was really good.
Yeah, it's fun. Thank you very much for joining me. Do we have a I want your fake case. Maybe I'll do the fake case, or maybe I'll do you my fake case as a Crimepedia extra one time. Maybe I'll do it as like a Christmas one for a bit of fun. That would be good. Maybe you'd like it and see. I think I put too much detail in because then I think, it was a bit gruesome. And I thought, well, maybe you're going to go, this is fake. You faked this one. Do we have a dumb criminal this week, or are we forfeiting dumb criminal for Halloween?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Okay, so we'll get back to it's a different episode this week, so we'll get back to one next week. But yes, maybe I'll do you my fake case for Christmas as a little Christmas carol. So thank you for joining us on our Halloween special episode. Thank you to everyone that listened live, and thank you if you're listening anyway. We will be back next week with another episode. Don't forget, you can still get your tickets for CrimeCon in Vegas, which is next year. Use the code Crimepedia and you can get yourself 10% off. Also, tickets are now available for CrimeCon UK next year, and the earlier you get them, the less you pay. So make sure you get them early. We will see you next week. So for now, be nice.
And bye.